Hi everyone. Week 1 forum, we've got 2 topics to choose from. So what I'd like you to do in starting off, I would like you to put the topic that you chose in the subject line for your forum discussion. This way when you respond to each other, you can see quickly who posted about which topic. And I'd like you to respond to people who posted about the topic you didn't do, so you get a little bit more of a broad picture for this week. Also keep in mind that each week you're going to have multiple questions in each assignment. So make sure you answer every question and don't miss anything. Don't leave any parts out. When you answer these things, I want you to answer a little more than just your opinion or 1 or 2 sentences. I don't want you to write a whole paper, but at least give us why you think what you think based on what you've just learned. So there should be, a paragraph or 2 answering these questions. Same thing with your responses to each other. When you respond to your peers, please make sure that you don't just say, I agree, that's a good post, but put why you agree, what you know that kind of goes along with what they said, or what you know that maybe doesn't match what they said, so we can have like a real discussion going with this. Now those are for every week. I'd like you to keep those things in mind. For week 1, I want to just give you a little bit of something about each of our 2 topics, so you're clear on what I'm looking for. For the first set of questions, we're talking about personality, as a whole, and incorporating psychotherapy into that. Now, I apologize, I'm going to be cheating and looking at my notes just so I don't forget anything. So for example, in the first question, if somebody goes to therapy and it's successful, what's changing? Is it personality or something else? And why do you think so? When a therapist is trained, this is the next question, how narrow or broad do you think that person's training needs to be? Is it something that needs to be focused on a certain population or a certain kind of treatment, or should it be broader than that? And why do you think so? The last question in that first group of questions is, if we were to imagine someone in therapy from a specific cultural group, what way of approaching them might work or might not work based on what you know, something you know about that cultural background. For example, is it socially acceptable to talk about feelings? Is anger unacceptable, or is therapy a sign of weakness? So you think about what you know kind of in a broad picture, and what would work and what wouldn't work with that culture, that subculture that we have got. Now this one you might need to bring in some additional references, because if you've got something to say about a certain culture based on what an author said or what a researcher said, you want to cite that so we know where you're getting that information. Okay, for the second set of questions, we're looking at Freud and his theories. Specifically, we're looking at what he calls defense mechanisms. These are things that we do to cope with unpleasant feelings that mostly we're not aware of what we're doing, or what he would say is unconscious. Now, I want you to notice in your book, page 46, figure 2.2 is called the structure of personality, and I want to point this out because, and it's probably backwards for you, but as you see, it looks like a giant iceberg. And this is what we say is the structure. It's what is your personality made up of. And we've got the 3 parts, the id, the ego, and the superego. Some of what goes on is we're aware of, like what I'm deciding to say to you right now. Some of it is most of it is what we're not aware of. And these defense mechanisms that he's talking about are all going to be found underneath in here, where you're not aware of what you're doing, but it contributes to what you do, what you're aware of. Also, just a way of thinking about personality too. This is a good example of how some theorists may have a personality structure. What is it made of? And then inside the structure there might be processes or things that happen, the id you're going to learn about. What goes on in the id, what does the id do that's different from the superego or the ego? There are also going to be a lot of theorists who come up with how we develop over time. So during certain periods of time in your life, what's going on that's different from other periods of time. So there are processes, and then there are stages, and then there's the structure. So you have to be able to make a distinction of those things in your mind when you're talking about personality as we go through this course. Okay, so as far as theory, discussion forums go, that's really all I wanted to tell you about. And if you have any questions about that, please post in the Q&A forum that we have at the top of the page. Thanks.